increasing manufacturing profits has been probably the target of the industry ever since it was born. And our next speaker will explain us how platform business models help the modern industry in revenue creation. And he's Edvard Blomstedt from Airfast. Nice to have you with us, Edvard. The stage is yours.
Hi, thank you. Is the mic on? Yes. Apparently some technical difficulties. Regardless, hope as many as you can join as possible and be as active as possible. It gives more energy to speak to you when there's a communication going. So if you don't mind, I'll try to involve you in one or two ways.
We are waiting for your slides, so maybe you tell a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. Well, the first slide, I think here, which
was supposed to be the picture of your life.
Supposed to be my private picture in that sense, is actually a picture I took yesterday evening of my new house that I
it's coming now.
Just moved into a week or two ago with my wife-to-be. We have just combined our families, and we have two 5-year-old kids who are learning how to live together and build a new home. At the same time, I've never ever lived outside the city center before, so that's very new for me as well. At the same time, I've been doing some restructuring work in our company. We've had a lot of segments, and I've narrowed it down, tried to shuffle the organization and create focus, while at the same time digitalizing the business and trying to, in a sense, provide a way of cannibalizing our traditional business model, while obviously at the same time being sure that we are able to create benefits and value so that we won't actually be hampered by that. But to me, this picture is I would say, a picture that describes a completely new era in my life. So many things have changed, with divorce to new family to restructuring of company, and now planning to digitalize industry and try to create transformation in the manufacturing industry as a whole. So that was my picture from my private life. Now, if I get this to work, I'd like to start off by showing a video, first of Airfast, and then go into my main theme of today, which is platforms or ecosystems and how they are transforming manufacturing and the industry, and will actually change all of how we see manufacturing today. And my name is Edvard Blomstedt, but please, if you have questions, just refer to Eddie or Eddie. It's more relaxed as such. Okay, there you go.
Welcome to a new era of handling, automizing, and financing your manufacturing online. With Airfast, you can digitalize your handling without system investments. Airfast includes simple digital tools for RFQ, quoting, automated price lists, sales orders, and purchase orders. And for your sales, an integrated online product catalog for existing customers. Once integrated in the Airfast scalable ecosystem, you and your partners are also connected and integrated with other companies already in the system. And you can standardize manufacturing that has been unstandardized until now. When moving your manufacturing, all history and procedures are memorized and organized in the Airfast ecosystem to ensure a seamless transition. Airfast Finance Loop provides you with cash prepayments, better cash flow, and improved gearing rate. You no longer have to finance your customers. And you can find customers that are already tested and evaluated by different users. You will also be able to sell capacity to new customers online, globally, like Airbnb, but for factories. And those who want to find a factory to produce their product, they can do it with Airfast. the Airfos ecosystem. The RFQ loop, the finance loop, the sales and purchase order loop, the production and quality loop, the logistics and stock loop, and together they create mutual satisfaction. The Airfos ecosystem specializes in machine building and construction components industries. The future with Airfos includes finding partners and customers, financing and insurance, transport and logistics, auditing, third-party inspection, file and revisions management, communication, calendar, task handling, and integrations to ERP and bookkeeping systems. And for this limited period only, registration is now free and just one click away at airfos.com.
Great. So just to try to involve you a bit, how many of you have actually used platform industries or shared economies in your normal everyday life? Quite many hands are showing up. You over there, what have you been using, if you don't mind?
I rent my apartment in Airbnb.
There you go. And how's it been working?
Well, I get money and people get accommodations.
So apparently it's been working just as you want. How about over there? I think you also raised your hand. Yeah. So quite similar experiences, and I think most of us already are very acquainted with the shared economy on a consumer base, basically in our private lives. What I'm here to talk about is more about the B2B side and whether or not there are possibilities on the B2B side to harness shared economies and what the changes will be, so to speak, in the B2B sector. And my own opinion is, quite frankly, that there definitely is a lot of potential there and that it's something that is more or less inevitable to happen, simply because it's a smarter way of handling things. It's more or less about using and harnessing existing resources, may they be manufacturing or logistics or anything that is existing in the world. And it's very much about how to create value in using the resources as opposed to specifically owning them. And at the same time, it links back to a very topical topic for today, how to enhance circular economy and how to improve our environment by doing things the smarter way. So with this, I have three lessons, so to speak, that I will run through one at a time. The first one of them is to use and harness shared economies, use portals, and try to rethink how you do the business. And the second point that it leads to is finding focus, how it allows businesses to focus in a smarter way. And the third lesson is how it inevitably in the end leads to better profits and improved business basically for our companies. How many of you, when I now run into lesson number 1, how many of you have noticed that communication is a clear problem in companies, both within your company, but not limited to that, since I at least noticed that it's quite often a problem when you do business with other outside companies. Have you bumped into this problem? Most hands are going up. I think that the way I've seen running our business and doing quite global business as such, with manufacturing in several Asian countries and several Eastern European countries and sales around Northern Europe, is that I see that communication is an ongoing and repeating problem. It's not necessarily about language. Even when you're communicating with your own office or with your spouse, communication and communication problems very often become the let's say, stumbling stone that causes problems and that results in inefficiencies. And what I've noticed that there's a distinct difference between platforms and B2B in the B2B sector as opposed to B2C, that they are far more complicated and far more complex because the communication also is far more complicated. When we're talking about harnessing existing assets or existing resources, as in the example with Airfos, you have to look at a vastly more complicated world than in Airbnb. In Airbnb, it's simple and graspable for a person to think about that you have your apartment, you're going to lend it out, and you probably sometimes want some money for that. Whereas in Airfos, to be able to use the analog of the Airbnb of factories, you can't just push out manufacturing and hope that a factory will overnight create the correct quality level for you with the correct pricing and delivery terms and so on. So the complexity that it creates means that the communication is ever more important. And in this, I have noticed that the B2B examples in shared economy very often rely on improving communication and improving how specifications are traded and changed so that you're able to actually achieve the results that you need. In Airfos as a system, we have tried to look at the manufacturing part of life. So how do you look at a tractor and how do you look at a windmill? And when you see the ready products, you see that they have basically nothing in common. But when you bear down to components, split them down and really look at the essence, you're starting to notice that there are lots of commonalities that you can standardize. So what you need to do within a B2B to create shared economies is that you have to be able to harness the communication and the sharing of information to a very different state. And what we have come to understand is that when you don't invest always yourself into fixed assets, into buildings, into machines, that you then focus on harnessing, that you then focus on selling out. When you take away your focus from owning and shift your focus on to harnessing and using new resources, you actually transform your company. It becomes less bound by the fixed investments that it has been doing, and without actually initially necessarily realizing it, you change your company into a very flexible and adjustable company that you can then use to grow in a completely different manner. So this communication part is very essential in it, and the potential, let's say, is immense there. Already in our company, we have tried several different ways. We have owned our factories. We have built a service concept in which we handle other companies' manufacturing without us owning our factories. And now we have digitalized it all and tried to cannibalize ourselves out. So there are three different business ideologies. And I have to say that by clearing and clarifying this, it has really transformed also the way that we communicate amongst ourselves inside our company, but also outside. The amazing things which I noticed when we started using Airfos in our business is that suddenly we were not focusing only on what we are doing ourselves and then delivering a product. Instead, we created an ecosystem which meant that we as a company were able to harness the hard work that others have done, partners have done. So if a customer is creating a specification for a manufacturing item, they are directly in the Airfos portal, which is for them their own manufacturing portal. But the second that they put them in there means that they are already harnessable for our company, Combiworks, which is a service provider. And at the same time, at that very second, they are harnessable to the manufacturing facilities that are linked into Airfos. So every time that an individual does a work piece, it's usable and harnessable for other users within the same ecosystem. And when you multiply that by thousands and thousands of companies and by thousands or millions of transactions, be it creating specifications, orders, price lists, communicating about non-conformities, creating quality reports, or even handling and getting financing. The amazing thing with B2B portals and ecosystems are that they create a common world in which the work done by others is harnessable by all the other interlinked companies. And you do this not by trying to build every connection yourself. You don't need to try to integrate with every player yourself, but all of this is happening simultaneously and based on the work that others have done. And this is the amazing part of how it transforms industry and gives the largest single increase in productivity since Henry Ford's mass production. And I see it very clearly that the ecosystem and B2B platform business will actually enable us to release the productivity, and I see that the smarter use of resources at the same time will have a huge environmental impact on our world, basically. And I have to believe that that will be some part of saving our planet as well. So don't invest and believe in that the sum of its parts is bigger than each individual. It also, as I mentioned before, it allows every company to actually focus on its main tasks. If you outsource or sell out your manufacturing capacity, suddenly you can focus on where you actually create value. If you're a manufacturer of tractors, but you don't focus on how to maintain your factory walls or which machine to build or buy this year, or focusing on the actual resource, you can shift that focus on to actually expanding. You can focus on innovation. You can focus on R&D on your product. You can focus on building sales channels for your sales, on marketing, and in general transforming your company. And by shifting your manufacturing and your company into a portal business model, you're actually gaining much of this change without trying to seek that change in itself. It's part of an automatic shift that happens because you actually get tools that are so much more efficient in doing your business than currently. So I want to emphasize that the lesson number 2 is that B2B companies that are working in platforms are actually gaining a focus that enables them to invest far more in growth, far more in innovation, and it also, in essence, then becomes their greatest assets for the future. They are more ready for the future than traditional company structures. And so from there, I come to the final and third lesson and conclusion. It has been shown by studies and people that, for example, Dan Slagan in VentureBeat article mentioned that the B2B platforms actually go far deeper than you ever see in the B2C side. The B2B platforms allow you to transform your business in a completely different way. It allows companies to do and harness resources in a way that traditional businesses just don't do. And when the scale is just so much more vast than it is on the B2C side, it actually creates far more productivity and change than the B2C sector can. And I think that one thing that I hope that people bring with you from here today is that you start questioning not that why should I go into ecosystems or a platform, but actually try to question from yourself that if it is inevitable, as I am sure it is, how many days or years do we actually as business leaders or people in companies, how many days or years do we have waste on trying to figure out for ourselves why we shouldn't change or why we shouldn't embrace the modern technology and the possibilities. And instead, just forget about that old-fashioned thinking and jump into the platforms, because quite frankly, at least in our Airfos example, I can say that it's been built so that it actually entails more or less no risks, but it has an incredible upside of value once you head in and start the transition of your company. And as a conclusion, if it sounds terrifying to some people, because it definitely will transform and some people will have a harder time than others to adjust, I think we can all remember that just 100 years ago, there were quite many people that were producing horseshoes and making a living off of horseshoes. And I think that it's fair to say that the amount of people in that field of business is far smaller today than it ever were then. But still, our society is quite much better than a century ago. So I am at least fully confident that we will manage to build better and more sustainable environments and societies this way. We just have to take the leap and go with it. Those were my 3 lessons for today, and thank you very much.
Are there any questions for Edvard? Yes, Catchbox.
Can you give some example of well-doing industry or using this?
Yes, can you, Edvard, give us an example using this platform?
Yes, I can. One example that leaps to mind, for example, is a company that is not traditionally connected with industrial manufacturing, but a Finnish export industry called Tapahtumahotelli Huone, which is developing meeting rooms and event spaces. But actually, when each time when they are setting up a new local, they have to actually invest quite a lot of money. We're talking around 1 million each time, and that goes into buying actually furniture and AV and all kinds of equipment to build these things, and they're all tailored. They're not off-the-shelf products. So a company like that has been able to transform their business by taking Airfos into use, and they have been able to find new suppliers without investing in that. They have been able to reduce their manufacturing costs. They have been able to secure financing through Airfos Finance Loop. So they have actually found suppliers, built contracts, made purchase orders, reduced manufacturing prices, and found financing for their production. And all of this without actually making any fixed investments into it. Then there are hydraulics manufacturers in Baltic countries. There are machining companies that are using it to put out their open RFQs, meaning request for quotations. So they are expanding their supplier pool by using and harnessing tools within the Airfos system. So not only using it to make their own business more efficient, but also to gather more suppliers or to gather more customers. So it actually transforms. And I think one of the main things is that when you do the shared economy thing, don't do it as a left hand or task. That if you each time that you want to do something a different way and use shared economies, if that's always a special case, you will actually decrease or hamper your ability. But if you take a system like Airfos into use, it actually becomes your norm to harness shared economies and to expand your possibilities. So it completely transforms your company. Thanks for the question.
Edvard, I have a short question related to the your knowledge about this subject, do you give workshops for, let's say, like Business Oulu type of organizations helping their customers to understand how to benefit? Do you
Yes.
teach your potential clients?
On top of teaching my kids, yeah. We do organize demos. We had one event just a few weeks ago with Sitra that Sitra organized and wanted to raise awareness of a shared economy. We are organizing one in the Mikkeli region in a few months, and we have organized in Lahti for the, is it called LADEC? It's the Lahti Regional Sea Cluster. And definitely we organize these events as often as we are invited, let's say.
Okay. So hint, hint, wink, wink. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Edvard.